Hi, and welcome in the 29th episode, in which we are going to cover both reading and writing into files in Python. To start working with a file in Python, we have to first open it, and for that we can use the method called open. In the brackets, we have to specify the name of the file or the path to it. In my case, as you can see, our groceries file, which I created for this episode, is in the same location as our Python script, which means I don't have to actually specify the location for it. I can simply add a name. So I'm going to input groceries.txt. And then what you have to do with the open command is you have to add the mode in which you want to open that file. There's a couple of different modes. Each of them have their own uses. The first one being R, which goes for read or readable. In this mode, the only interaction you can have with a file is you can read what's inside of it. Another mode is the W, which goes for the write mode, in which you can edit the file, you can write over the file, you can overwrite it, you can add new stuff to it. The third one being the append mode, in which you cannot edit current text in the file, you cannot remove any text from a file, however you can add new lines and new text to that file. And the last mode is actually R+, which allows you basically for administrative access to the file. It allows for everything to be done, but you shouldn't really use it if it's not absolutely necessary, because there's just no reason to. To make sure your Python scripts are efficient, you have to remember to always close a file after you're done working with it. But to do that, we have to actually modify our first line and put our opened groceries file into a variable, which I'm going to call groceries. This allows us for an easier way to work with that file. If you want to close it at the end, you simply have to put a name, so groceries.close. So now, actually, I'm going to show you how to read the file in a couple of different ways. The first one being simply spitting out the raw text in the file, all of it at once in the console. This is the simplest way to do it, but it isn't really customizable or anything like that. And it's done by simply using groceries.read. And I actually forgot we have to put it in a print statement, because this command for itself, it's reading the text in a file, but it's not actually displaying it. So if we just put it inside of a print, and now we start the program, as you can see, all of the text inside of our file has been printed out into the console, just like you wanted it to. So another way to read things from the file is the readLine command, which is going to read the first line from the file and then move what you could call a cursor onto the next line. So if you would use that command again, it's going to print out the second line. As you can see, starting it with the single line, it's printing out our first line from the file. And if I duplicate the line and use it twice, it's going to print out the first two lines. Another more manageable way to do it is using the readLines command, which actually takes the text in your file and makes a list from it, with each line being on each index. So if we run the script now, as you can see, it's giving us the raw list of items, and we can actually use it as a normal list by adding an index here, for example 1, and access specific items from that list. So now that we have a command which is going to create a list from our file, we can use it in a for loop to go through the entire list and print it out for us. We're going to create a for loop now for item in groceries.readlines, then colon, and on the next line, we're simply going to print item. And as you can see, it's printing out each line after the other. So those were some simple methods to read information from a file and interact with it. And now let's go on to writing and appending files, as well as creating new ones. As you can see, I have a simple setup done just like before, where we open a file and then we close it at the end. However, now I'm going to change our read mode into append mode, and we're going to go over another commands. So the first one being write. You can simply use it by putting the name of your variable .write, and then we can add text which we want to append at the end of the file, and I'm just going to make it 1 apple. As you can see on our groceries list, at the end we have 4 houses, and then we have an empty line. And if I run the script, you can see nothing displays on the console. However, if I go into our text file, 1 apple has appeared at the end. You have to be careful while using this command though, because if I'm actually going to run the file again, it's going to add 1 apple again, but not only that, it's going to put it on the same line, completely messing up our file. And you wouldn't want that to happen for like a larger scale file or anything similar. You can actually format your text before running the script by using an escape character, which I think I shown previously, which is \n. And that escape character actually makes the text go to the next line. So if I would put it over here as well, we would have 1 on one line, and an apple would appear on the line below it. That's why I'm adding \n before our 1 apple, because if I run it now, as you can see, it adds on another line, and I can run it as many times as I want, and it's going to keep adding new lines instead of putting it all in the same line. Now, watch what happens when we change the mode from append mode to write mode. As you can see, everything is fine with our file. It's like we left it before. However, if we're going to start the Python script now with our write command in the write mode, it's going to completely change our entire file, and it's only going to write the text we just put into it, because it's overwriting the whole file instead of appending at the end of it. So you have to be careful for that. Another thing you can do is similar to readlines command. You can use the writelines command, and then you can use it multiple times to add multiple lines into your file. As you can see, we now have 3 lines in our groceries file. So now let's say that we want to add a new file, and it's actually extremely simple. What you just have to do is put the name of a file that doesn't actually exist. You can even specify a path where it has to be created. So I'm going to simply create an example.html to show you that it's not only text files. I mean, HTML is still a text file, but it's a slightly different format. And I'm going to open example.html, which, as you can see, doesn't really exist in our files. And I'm going to write lines 1 apple. Or I'm just simply going to write it. I don't need the writelines command. If I run it now, as you can see, a new file has appeared here, example.html, and if we open it, it has 1 apple inside. And obviously, you can add actual HTML into that file. So for example, let's create a paragraph. Run it now. And as you can see, our file now has that paragraph we wrote in the HTML. So those are some useful methods and commands in Python, which you can use to read files, interact with them, write or overwrite them, and append at the end, as well as you can create new files now. And yeah, that would be it for today. See ya!